Welcome tycoons. Today in this video, we will be taking a look at how to make money in a market crash. Now before we get into the video, if you are new, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment below, saying, "I subscribed." And we will do our best to personally reply to your comments. Quick disclaimer. It's important to note that we are not financial advisors and you should do your own research when picking stocks to invest in. These are just some of our viewpoints. By no means would we recommend watching one YouTube video and then immediately buying that stock. This video was made for educational and entertainment purposes only. Consult your financial advisor. Here in Project Billionaire we inspire and give value to future great magnates. You've all heard the story before, the stock market crashes, and a few years later, someone comes forth and demonstrates how they were able to profit enormously from the collapse. Michael Burry, who shorted the stock market in 2008 and gained a ton of money, is certainly one of the most well-known. The Big Shorts is the film that made him famous. You also have George Soros, who made $1 billion in a day by shorting the British pound. Andy Krieger, who profited millions while the Kiwi crashed, is someone you should know. These people use specialized strategies to profit during the crash, whereas the majority of investors were crushed and pulled out of the market and lost money. So, we've all heard of the stories of the stock horror shows. Everyone anticipated that GoPro would be worth tens or maybe hundreds of billions of dollars. In the present, how many GoPros are being purchased? Not many at all, and as a result the stock was completely destroyed, falling by nearly 90%. A more contemporary example is Aurora. Many anticipated that the company would flourish once marijuana use became legal in Canada. Yeah, not really. After all the buzz subsided, the price actually dropped from 150 Canadian dollars to under 10. Even more recently, Nikola is another example of a stock that received significant anticipation due to the possibilities of EVs but was ultimately destroyed. Nevertheless, not all investors lost money with these stocks, which is why I gave you these three examples. Shorting these stocks was done by a knowledgeable set of people who were able to spot the hype. These investors made a lot of money after the bubble burst and the stock market fell. Because when you short a stock, you make money when it drops and lose money when it climbs. Therefore, if you can spot trends, you can avoid overpriced and hyped stocks. Then shorting them will allow you to profit greatly. Let's face it, it can sometimes be simple to recognize when stocks are inflated. Because you get your neighbor John, who has no investment experience, and he claims to be purchasing the stock. The fact that every stock news is available on YouTube and is shared on social media is often a clue that a stock is expensive. For instance, when Bitcoin was at its peak, it was the topic of conversation for everyone. I recall that my pals were purchasing it. My pals, who didn't even understand the meaning of the word invest, bought it. The bubble eventually burst, as you could have expected. Shorting particular individual stocks is one strategy to profit from a market crash, so to speak. That was the strategy employed by Michael Burry to profit from a crash. He shorted bonds related to subprime mortgages, and George Soros made $1 billion in one day by shorting the pound. The stock market as a whole is another thing you might short if you were very bold. Like most bubbles, the bigger the crash will be the longer it lasts. If the crash he is predicting occurs and you choose to short it, you will benefit tremendously. The issue is that we aren't completely sure when a crash will happen. I don't like shorting the entire stock market because it might be in 5 years or so, simply because choosing the timing is too difficult. I just don't think it's a smart idea to bet against the market as a whole, you know. Because the market eventually becomes profitable and grows, these brief downturns are only temporary and are unpredictable in terms of timing. The Warren Buffett method of profiting during a market crash is the next strategy I'll show you. This is the approach that I personally take as well. To demonstrate this example, I'll go into some recent history. For the majority of investors, 2007 to 2008 wasn't a particularly fun year. It was the year of the housing bubble burst, during which time both the market and housing prices suffered losses. If we examine, between November 2007 and March 2009, it had a more than 50% decline. So the average American stock investor lost more than half of their worth in just over a year. Imagine that. Fast forward just a year later, for some investors, they lose more than half of their entire life savings. Obviously, this is what the majority of people do. Warren Buffett refers to it as emotional investing. Around the time of the crash, they withdraw their funds from the market and invest them in secure assets, such as cash in the bank. They believe that, since I have lost so much money in stock losses, stocks are no longer a good investment for me. Therefore, while prices are plummeting near the end of the crash, they sell their shares. In other words, they make cheap, emotionally driven investments, yet this presents a huge opportunity for investors who don't do so. Individuals who make investments after examining the fact. Are you enjoying this video? Consider hitting the like button and subscribe. The ideal moment to invest was actually in early 2009, according to the facts. Everyone panicked when the stock market plummeted, and the majority of people sold their investments. As the saying goes, there was blood in the market streets. Because stocks are discounted then, that is the time to buy. Warren Buffett was also quite cautious in 2007 about the number of equities he purchased. Instead, he focused mostly on purchasing bonds. However, Buffett embarked on a buying spree in 2009 following the crash. Deploying all of that cash that he saved up for so long, and it paid off those who bought in the midst of panic in the recession. They made the highest returns. I'm talking about the over 400% increase in the stock market since March 2009. The ideal moment to buy is during a market crash, so keep that in mind if you want to profit from the next market fall. When everyone around you is frightened, you might say, "Hey man, the market increased by 400%, or 5 times that amount. I won't become a millionaire suddenly because of that." And I completely agree, but there's something else you might want to consider. Compound interest is the world's 8th marvel. You're probably familiar with the story about the man who, before he passes away, asks the wealthy king for one favor. The king responds, "Yes, I'll give you the thing depending on what it is." The guy asks, "See that chessboard you're playing on? Please grant my family 1 grain of rice for the first square, 2 for the second, 4 for the third, 8 for the fourth square, and so on for all 64 squares." Even though the king did not know what 1 to the power of 64 was, he grants the man's wish, thinking it would be a tiny gesture for a poor dying man. It turned out that even his entire kingdom did not produce so much rice. His entire kingdom had to be given away as a result. And that's the power of compound interest. If you invest small amounts of money now and give it time, that can turn into millions in the future. What you need for the recipe is a high return, which you can get by investing after a crash, and of course time in the market. Time to let your investments compound on themselves and grow. Now the last thing I want to mention about making money from a stock market crash is choosing the right investments at the right time. I want to bring your attention to this graph. It's a graph by Fidelity, which tells you what type of sectors do well in different parts of the market cycle. At the top of the cycle, you want to be playing the game defensively. You want precious metals that retain their value, such as gold. You want stocks that aren't cyclical and are more focused on consumers. Regardless of the market we are in, you want healthcare, which is still necessary. You should, however, significantly alter your strategy if the market begins to crash. The consumer cyclicals and financial equities are the ones to buy when the market is at its lowest point, because they are typically absurdly cheap and nobody wants to own them. It is time to shift investments towards industries like transportation and, particularly, technology once the market begins to show signs of recovery. Technology stocks are so cheap but have a lot of growth potential at the beginning of the bull market after it crashes. For example, since 2009, the price of Netflix stock has increased by more than 6,000%. Amazon, whose price has increased by more than 4,500%. Apple increased by 500%. In order to make money after a market crash, you really need to choose the correct kinds of stocks, those that will cause disruption over the following 10 years or so. There is no doubt that you can make a lot of money if you can do this. Choose them early and reinvest your gains. The majority of people treat a market crash as something to be feared, but, if you have the right mindset and employ the right strategies, some of which are explained in this video, a crash may be something that you can turn into a great opportunity. Hope we were able to give you valuable input and help you get to the next step in becoming financially free. We wish you the best of luck everyone and hope you can get those high investing returns. Check out the links in the description below. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Until then, we'll see you in the next one.